Welcome to this lecture on animal behavior. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world of honeybee social organization. Imagine a bustling, highly advanced city where every citizen knows their exact job from birth, working flawlessly without a boss. We will explore how bees achieve this incredible feat through eusociality, polyphenism, and polyethism, and uncover the hidden mathematics that make their society possible. Now that we have introduced the topic, let us look at how a honeybee colony actually operates. It is helpful to think of the colony not as a group of individual insects, but as a single, unified superorganism. Just like the cells in your body work together to keep you alive, individual bees work together to keep the colony thriving. By dividing tasks so perfectly, the colony achieves a level of efficiency and survival that no single bee could ever dream of reaching alone. This highly organized system is what allows them to store enough food for harsh winters and raise massive numbers of young. Building on the idea of a superorganism, scientists classify this specific type of society as eusociality. This is the highest level of social organization found in the animal kingdom. For a species to be considered truly eusocial, it must meet three strict criteria. First, there must be overlapping generations living together in the same nest. Second, they must engage in cooperative brood care, meaning everyone helps take care of the young, not just the parents. And third, there must be a reproductive division of labor. This means that mostly sterile individuals, the workers, spend their lives supporting a very small number of reproductive individuals, like the queen. Within this eusocial structure, bees utilize two incredible biological mechanisms. The first is polyphenism. This means that individuals with the exact same genetics can develop into completely different physical forms, such as a queen or a worker, based entirely on what they are fed as larvae. The second mechanism is polyethism, which is a division of labor based on age. A single worker bee will naturally transition through different roles as she grows older, starting as a cleaner, moving to nursing, then building, and finally foraging. This dynamic shifting ensures the colony always has the right amount of labor dedicated to the right tasks at any given moment. Before we dive into the mathematics of how this works, we must understand why this matters in the real world. Honeybee social organization provides a perfect model for studying how complex societies evolve from solitary ancestors. Practically, this highly organized system is what allows honeybees to be the most effective pollinators on the planet, directly supporting a massive percentage of the human food supply. Furthermore, by studying their polyphenism and polyethism, scientists gain vital insights into epigenetics, which is how environment and nutrition alter gene expression. Without this intricate social harmony, entire ecosystems that rely on bee pollination would rapidly collapse. This brings us to a fundamental question. Why would a worker bee give up her own reproduction to help the queen? The driving force behind this extreme social organization is beautifully explained by Hamilton's rule. Conceptually, this mathematical principle calculates whether an altruistic behavior will be favored by natural selection. In the formula, R represents the genetic relatedness between the worker bee and the new sisters being raised. B represents the reproductive benefit, meaning the extra offspring successfully produced because of the worker's help. Finally, C represents the reproductive cost, which is the number of offspring the worker gives up. If the relatedness or the benefit increases, the left side grows, making the altruistic society much more likely to succeed. To actually use Hamilton's rule, we first need to understand how bees inherit their genes. Honeybees use a unique genetic system called haplodiploidy to determine the sex of their offspring. In this system, males, known as drones, hatch from unfertilized eggs. Because they have no father, they are haploid, meaning they have only one set of chromosomes. On the other hand, females, which become queens and workers, hatch from normally fertilized eggs and are diploid. When reproducing, the queen passes on a random half of her genes to each egg, but the drone, having only one set of chromosomes, passes on his exact entire genome to every single daughter. Now that we understand haplodiploidy, we can formulate exactly how to calculate the genetic relatedness between two worker bee sisters. The total genetic relatedness is simply the sum of the genetic contribution from the mother and the genetic contribution from the father. The symbol RM represents the probability of two sisters sharing genes specifically through the diploid queen. The symbol RF represents the portion of genes they share through the haploid drone. By calculating these two probabilities separately and adding them together, we can reveal the mathematical truth behind their behavior. We will see exactly why worker bees prefer raising sisters over having their own daughters, as the numbers will show a massive evolutionary advantage. Now that we have our formula, let us calculate the exact genetic relatedness between two worker bee sisters. First, we look at the mother. The queen gives half of her genes to the first sister, and there is a 50% chance she gives those exact same genes to the second sister. Multiplying 0.5 by 0.5 gives 0.25. Next, we look at the father. He makes up half of the daughter's genetics, but he gives 100% of his genes to every daughter. Multiplying 0.5 by 1.0 gives 0.50. Adding these together, we find the final answer is 0.75. This means sisters share a staggering 75% of their genes. So we have proven that worker bees share 75% of their genes with their sisters. This brings us to the evolutionary proof of why eusociality exists in bees. If a worker were to leave the hive and have her own daughter, she would only pass on half of her genes, meaning a relatedness of 0.50. However, by staying in the hive and helping her mother raise more sisters, she is raising individuals who share 0.75 of her genes. Because 0.75 is strictly greater than 0.50, it is mathematically much more beneficial for a worker to organize into a society. This high relatedness is the biological glue holding the colony together. Now that we have established the relatedness, let us apply Hamilton's rule to understand age polyethism. We will analyze a young nurse bee. Suppose her potential future reproductive value, which is her cost of dying, is 10 units. Assume foraging brings enough food to raise 12 new sisters, and the relatedness is 0.75. We calculate the genetic benefit by multiplying 0.75 by 12, which gives exactly 9 units of benefit. We then compare this benefit of 9 to her cost of 10. Since 9 is strictly less than 10, Hamilton's rule is not satisfied. The physical meaning here is that sending young bees to forage is a terrible evolutionary strategy, so they stay safely inside. Having seen that young bees should not forage, let us evaluate the older bee using the exact same logic to prove why age polyethism evolves. The benefit of the food brought back remains the same at 9 units. However, the cost of the old bee dying is now only 2 units because she has already completed her safe indoor tasks and is near the end of her life anyway. When we compare the benefit to the cost, we see that 9 is strictly greater than 2. Hamilton's rule is strongly satisfied. This mathematical proof perfectly explains the evolution of age polyethism. The colony maximizes its overall fitness by assigning the most dangerous tasks to individuals with the lowest remaining biological cost. To visually reinforce what we have just learned and proven, let us look at this diagram summarizing the bee's life cycle. In the top half, you are seeing polyphenism in action. Notice how a single fertilized egg can take one of two paths. If fed royal jelly, it becomes a queen. If fed worker jelly, it becomes a worker. The bottom half illustrates age polyethism along a timeline. You can see the worker bee progressing from cleaning cells in her first few days to nursing, then building comb, and finally taking on the dangerous job of foraging outside only at the very end of her life. This perfectly aligns with the cost-benefit mathematics we just calculated. We have covered the full topic of honeybee social organization, so let us review the key takeaways. First, eusociality allows the colony to function as a highly efficient superorganism, achieving survival rates impossible for solitary insects. Second, polyphenism proves that diet, not just DNA, can create entirely distinct physical castes like queens and workers. Third, age polyethism ensures that the colony's labor needs are always met, assigning dangerous tasks to older bees to minimize evolutionary costs. Finally, and most importantly, this entire complex society is driven by the strict mathematics of genetic relatedness. You now understand exactly why working together is the most successful survival strategy these incredible insects could adopt.